If you ask somebody how long they exercise and they say, I train every day all day, the first thought that comes to mind is that they are lying or about to injure themselves. But the more I think about greasing the groove, the more I believe that it probably is the best way to introduce exercise into the life of sedentary people. When you think about the challenges sedentary people have when they decide to exercise for a healthier life, there are many problems that come to mind. Low pain tolerance, lack of commitment, possible lack of time, lack of consistency, and anxiety from doing something new. Under grease the groove training, all these problems are not a problem at all. Grease the groove is a training method where you choose a specific exercise, maybe a push-up. It needs to be a light or moderate load, a low to moderate rep range, and you do that exercise throughout the day. To be slightly more specific, under a rate of perceived exertion scale, 10 being a load you cannot do 1 rep, and 9 being your 1 rep max. Under grease the groove, you want to be around a 4 to 6 range. If 9 means 225 pounds, then 4 might be 40% of 225 pounds, which will give us 90 pounds. The point is that it needs to feel either light or moderate to the point you can do it without warm-up. Instead of using a rate of perceived exertion scale, I guess you can simply follow a simple repetition rule. If you can do more than 15 reps, then you can grease the groove. After choosing the load, you shouldn't reach failure at all. The point is not to tax a lot of the body, but simply to move it, or repeat the movement pattern that you choose. If 20 reps means failure, stay under 12 or 10 reps. After establishing the exercise, the load and the rep range you will do, the next step is doing it throughout the day with long intervals between sets. For example, you can do a total of 4 sets of grease the groove with 1 hour intervals between sets. At 1 p.m. you might do 10 push-ups, at 2 p.m. you repeat it, and again until you reach 4 sets. Under grease the groove, there is no fixed amount of sets that you should do, or a fixed amount of days that you should do, but because of the nature of choosing light loads, avoiding failure, and using moderate rep ranges, it is natural to be able to grease the groove every day. If you're a power lifter or you do calisthenics, then you probably already heard about the existence of grease the groove. And it is because greasing the groove is a technique that helps a lot in becoming better at a specific movement pattern. The light load and high frequency allows for the conditioning of the joints without great taxation and need of recovery, while it improves your nerves in the recruitment of the joint or muscle in a specific movement pattern. In other words, the more you do it, the better you will be, although with some caveats. Grease the groove is generally not seen or taken as a main way that you should train or exercise, because realistically, if you don't progressive overload or significantly challenge your muscles or joints, then you will not be forced to adapt and will not get the results of adaptation, whether it be greater torque production, greater muscle size, or joint conditioning. When you do standard strength training with heavy loads, high sets, and low reps, the amount of reps you will do as a total is really low, and the muscle and joint recovery will be high too. This means that you will not repeat the movement pattern a lot. You might develop joint and muscle adaptation, but the nerves recruiting them at a specific movement pattern with a specific resistance profile might need more work. In this case, grease the groove fixes the problem of too low repetitions and allows for a better nerve recruitment by simply doing it more. But putting aside the use of greasing the groove with the intention of strength training for powerlifting or calisthenics, when you think about it, greasing the groove might be the best way for sedentary people to start exercising or to combat sedentarism in general. When people are sedentary, they start having trouble with simple tasks such as climbing stairs or lifting boxes. In this sense, their quality of life and their fitness is heavily affected by their lack of training and movement. But all these simple tasks do not need a lot of work to be better at. You don't need to spend as much time, energy, or commitment to become better at climbing stairs, because the objective difficulty of climbing stairs is not as high as a world record in weighted pull-ups. With this perspective, sedentary people don't need standard strength or muscle training to see adaptation and benefits. Even with Grease the Groove, they can see plenty of adaptation and benefits in their quality of life. And Grease the Groove also fixes all of their excuses or problems when it comes to introducing them to movement or exercise. Time is always a problem for beginners. Standard weightlifting or calisthenics training always involves having to commit a specific time of your day, and some people always have trouble for this. But even if you're the busiest person in the world, you don't need to allocate 30 minutes on an hour to Grease the Groove. All you need is a minute per set. You can use dumbbell exercises, but when you mix Grease the Groove with calisthenics, it can be very convenient. All beginners can do is incline push-ups and squats or isometric squats against a wall, or if they find something to do inverted rows, that is also a good choice. Time or being busy is not a problem at all with Greasing the Groove. Another problem a lot of sedentary people have with exercising is a low pain tolerance. You need a certain degree of pain tolerance to strength train or build muscle, whether it be a challenging load or reaching failure. In this case, with Greasing the Groove, you don't need a high pain tolerance to see results, because this method of training inherently asks you to not reach your limits with high rep ranges or high loads. In this case, you don't need high pain tolerance to Grease the Groove successfully. Maybe the most underrated quality of Greasing the Groove for sedentary sedentary people is the introduction of the habit of exercise and being consistent. Since it is possible to grease the groove every day and you do it throughout the day, it will be very easy for exercise to quickly become an automatic and easy part of your life. Many people find any reason to avoid going to the bars or the gym, but when you mix calisthenics and grease the groove, you can basically do it anywhere and anytime, and that opens a lot of doors for being consistent and building the habit of working out. It can even replace an addiction you want to get rid of. Instead of smoking, you can do a set of push-ups, and when you start doing it every day for a lot of times, it will be second nature to you and you will no longer worry about exercising anymore in your life. Another benefit for greasing the groove is that it will be really hard to injure yourself by only greasing the groove, since the load is light and the rep range is not remotely close to failure. Some disadvantages for only using greasing the groove in sedentary people is that they might never get that motivated to exercise, because the visual changes will be slower or minimal compared to standard muscle building training. Because the load is light or minimal, and on top of that, you are not reaching failure, the amount of muscle tissue built will be way lower compared to standard failure training. In the case that aesthetics or muscle size is really important, then only greasing the groove is probably something that should be avoided. Another disadvantage is that the principles of greasing the groove, like the use of light loads and low rep ranges relative to failure, don't encourage the consistent need of challenging yourself that is really important for any kind of training. In this case, a beginner might never learn to train hard or consistently challenge himself. Greasing the groove is, in my perspective, the best way sedentary people should introduce their life to exercise and to build the habit of exercise before they decide to do anything big, like committing to a 5-day training program. However, if they want serious results, they should at some point move away from only doing grease the groove.